guys, I thought I'd show you a few more examples of what exercise or movement looked like for me when I first started incorporating it in my own chronic fatigue syndrome or CFS recovery. Now, I put out a video way back showing just the really beginning stuff that I did, and it's by far one of my more popular videos. And I've done a couple since then that were not as popular, and I think it's because they are a bit too hard. So I thought in this one right now, I would just show you a really simple, really gentle exercise or movement program that I did that is really basic and easy to do. It doesn't require any equipment at all, not even a mat, not even shoes. It's just something really simple and really basic that you can do from your kitchen. It's easy to remember, it's very gentle on the body, and just a really good, in my experience, place to start with chronic fatigue syndrome recovery. Now, I put disclaimers in the beginning of all of my videos because I'm only ever sharing what worked for me, because we are all individual and I am not a healthcare professional, so I certainly don't know what is right for anybody else. But especially when it comes to exercise, I cannot stress enough that I do not know if this will at all be suitable for you. And whereas this was an entry-level place for me, a place to start, this may be way too much for somebody else. So absolutely, use your own judgment, talk to your trusted healthcare professionals, and make sure that this is absolutely safe for you and appropriate for you before giving it a try yourself. Now, there were a few things that ended up helping me or allowing me to fully recover from chronic fatigue syndrome or CFS. And although exercise wasn't the only thing that got me there, it was by far one of the main drivers. For me, personally, it was invaluable and really worked so well to pull me out of this. I've come to realize over time that a better term for what I did in the beginning would be movement over exercise, because when people hear exercise, they picture going for a run or going to the gym, and it was nothing like that at all. For me, I needed to start some really simple, light, gentle things just to get me moving throughout the day and to slowly start building strength. So I definitely found that just laying around all of the time, even though that's mostly what I felt like doing, really wasn't getting me anywhere. So I had to find gentle ways to start moving, to keep things moving in my body, support the lymphatic system, and to slowly, very slowly start building up strength. So I'm just going to dive right into the exercises right away here, because I've talked a lot about how I've used movement and exercise in my own recovery program in quite a few other videos. And I'm going to put a link up on the screen here to a playlist that has a few videos that really spell out the details of exactly what that looked like, how long it took, what I did at various stages, how my body reacted, how I supported my body in that process, because I had to do a lot to support my body and help it recover even from gentle movement. So if you're interested in learning more about my own journey with this, you might want to check out that playlist. But if this is your first video of mine, or your first video of mine that's about how I use movement and exercise to recover from CFS, I will just quickly share that I started with about 1 minute per day, or 1 minute every second day, a very gentle movement, not using any equipment or any weights or doing anything strenuous or high intensity at all. It was very small. So I started with an increment of about 1 minute per day or every second day, and then slowly built up to being able to do it about 5 days a week. And then once I was comfortable there, then the next week I would up it to 2 minutes. And pretty much every time I upped it, I'd have to go back to every second day. And once I felt comfortable with every second day, then I'd slowly start adding in more days until I got up to about 5 days a week. And then I'd hold that for a bit. So even if I felt like I could do more, I did not go up until I'd stayed at that level for about a week. And I tried and failed at exercise programs for many years, and it only ever worked for me when I started so small and so light that even though I was sick and in a weakened physical condition at the time, it still felt too easy for me. I had to keep it so small that it felt like it couldn't possibly be doing anything at all, and then use almost superhuman self-control to keep myself from raising it. Because every time I raised it and tried to do a little bit more, when I did it too quickly, then my symptoms would flare and I'd really feel unwell. So for me, extremely slow, extremely gradual, a whole lot of patience was key. My motto with this is that it's better to do too little than too much. It's never too little, but it's very easily too much. And finding this self-control to not do too much was so tough for me, because prior to getting CFS, I worked out a lot, vigorously, often 6 days per week, and sometimes 3 or more hours per day. I was doing weightlifting, I was running a lot, I was doing kickboxing, I was doing boot camp classes. I just was really used to pushing myself hard and my body being able to handle a lot. So scaling it down to these really small, sort of pathetic feeling workouts. Like, what is this? Like a 90-year-old could do more than this right now. It was really tough to stick to it. And my impatience would kick in because I wanted to do more and do more. But it took me years. But finally I realized that when I put my ego aside and just chilled and stuck to the tiny little bit, and then the next week added on a tiny bit more, this is finally what pulled me out of it. And I kept up this slow, steady pace for about a year, and within a year I was up to about hour-long workouts. So it took me months and months and months to build up, but it was definitely worth it. And now I go to the gym and I run 5-6 days a week, and I can push myself as hard as I want. And there's never any post-exertional malaise, there's never any symptom flares or anything like that at all. So for me, it was definitely worth it to stick to this slow, gradual program, building up strength and keeping things in my body moving, and being patient while my body got strong and healthy again. And for me, it wasn't just about building strength or supporting the lymphatic system, although those things definitely were important. It was also about sending those signals to my body to grow, to thrive. Because when we are still and when we don't move at all, we're actually sending signals, I've learned, to our bodies that it's time to die. And I talked about this a lot in my book, Finding Freedom. Another shameless book plug. As I've said before, I don't have an advertising budget right now, so I have to advertise it myself. But I do have a couple of chapters in here spelling out step by step exactly what I did with my exercise program, the research that I did that backed up what I was doing, and the results that I saw while I was doing it. So if you're interested in checking it out, it's linked in the video description. All right, so let's dive in. So when I did this, especially to start, it was more about the time. It wasn't so much about how many sets or how many repetitions. It was just about setting a timer on my phone, and then when that timer went off, I was done. I'm going to show you 10 different exercises or movements that I did to get started, but I didn't do all 10 of them at once. I started with perhaps 2 or 3, and I'd set a timer, and I'd do 5 to 10 repetitions of each, however long made sense with the amount of time that was on the timer on my phone. And when the timer went off, I was done. I wasn't so worried about, was I hitting every single muscle group? It was just about keeping things moving, slowly building strength, supporting the lymphatic system, sending those growth signals to my brain and to my body so that my body could heal and slowly come out of this. And although I typically do warm-ups before workouts, this whole routine I'm about to show you is essentially a warm-up itself. So in my experience, there's no need to do any kind of warm-up before you dive into it. All right, so let's do this. Just going to show you a few things in my kitchen, talk you through it. Gonna start at the bottom of my body and slowly work my way up, and go through 10 different things that give you a pretty thorough full body movement exercise program to get started with. So right before I get started, I pull out my phone or whatever it is that I'm using for a timer, and I set the timer for how long I want to do my workout, because without an actual timer going off, I'm probably not going to want to stop. It helps with the self-control when there's a timer to let you know that you're done. And I'm going to use my island here, but you can use a kitchen countertop or an island or any tall, stable surface that you can work off of. So first we're going to start with calf raises. So you can either do this facing the counter or standing next to it with either one hand or 2 hands on the countertop. You're just going to put your feet about shoulder width apart and then slowly push up off your toes, raise up into the air. If you can, hold it, pause for a second, and then slowly lower back down. And that's it. This is a good movement to work your calf muscles, and you just keep doing slow, steady repetitions, up off your heels, back down to the floor, up off your heels, back down to the floor. And that's it. And this next one, as we work our way up our body, is a side leg raise. So still working our lower body here. So now you're going to stand with your feet close together and start with one leg. I'm starting with my right leg, and you're just going to slowly lift it out to the side, keeping your leg straight, no bend in the knee, and then slowly lower it back down. And then just keep up with slow, steady repetitions of raising your leg up and lowering it to the ground. And whatever we do on one side, we're always going to do to the other. So once you've done however many reps you want to do on the right side, you just switch to the left and continue the same movement with your left leg. All right, moving on with our lower body workout, we're going to focus on our glutes, and you're just going to stand facing the countertop with your feet about shoulder width apart, hands on the countertop, and then just slowly raise and lower one leg behind you. Now, I don't have much room here, so I can't raise my leg very high, but if you had a little bit more room, you could raise your leg just a little bit higher. So just straight back and straight back down, keeping both of your legs straight as you're doing the movement. And then when you're finished with your repetitions on one side, as always, we switch to the other side and do the same amount of repetitions with the other leg. Slowly raise, slowly lower. If you'd like, you can pause for a second when you get your leg to the top before lowering back down. All right, so next we're going to move into a squat. So still working our lower body, you're going to stand facing the countertop with your feet about shoulder width apart and just grab onto the countertop and slowly lower your butt towards the ground. And your goal is to try and keep your knees more or less above your ankles. You don't want your knees pushing out past your toes. So you can look down at your legs while you're doing it and see where your knees are lining up. And you're just going to slowly lower down and then raise back up. So you can keep going like this with slow, steady repetitions. Or if you want to increase the difficulty level slightly, you can lower down and then pause at the bottom for a few seconds and then raise back up. And you can keep that pause at the bottom with each repetition that you do. All right, next one on our lower body is another type of squat. It's called a sumo squat. So you're going to put your feet a bit wider apart, so wider than shoulder width apart, and point your toes out slightly. And then from this stance, we're going to do very similar to what we just did with the last squat. You're going to slowly lower down, working to keep your knees above your ankles and not jutting out past your toes, and then stand back up. And you have the same option with this one as with the last. You can do the slow, steady repetitions of the sumo squat, or you can pulse at the bottom and then come back up, or you can pause at the bottom for a few seconds and come back up. Moving on. Next one, and our last one for our lower body focus, is lunges. So you're just going to turn to the side, keep one hand on the counter or island or whatever it is that you're using, and put one foot in the front and one foot in the back, and toes facing forward on both of your feet. And then you're just going to slowly drop down, and you're going to try to drop directly straight down. So again, working to make sure that your knee isn't pushing out too far towards your toes. Slowly drop down, then bring yourself back up. And then with slow, steady repetitions, keep dropping straight down and then pushing yourself back up. And just like with the squats, if you like, you have the option to pause at the bottom for a few seconds, or to pause at the bottom and do some pulsing lunges. And of course, whatever we do to one side, we're going to do the other. So once you're done however many reps you want to do on the one leg, you're going to switch and alternate and put your other leg forward and then do the same amount of repetitions on the other side. Okay, let's get going on our upper body. So the first thing for our upper body is going to be some push-ups. So you're going to stand facing the countertop or the island with your feet about hip width apart, and then your hands on the countertop a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. And you're just going to lower yourself down towards the counter and then push yourself back up. And keep this going with slow, steady repetitions. And if you want to make this a little bit more difficult, you can take your feet and move them back, because the farther they are away from the counter, the more difficult this is going to be. So if you're feeling like you can handle a little bit more, or maybe later on down the line in your exercise program, you want to up the intensity, you can pull your feet back and do your push-ups from there. And you'll notice there is quite a bit of a difference in the intensity of the movement. And after this, we're moving on to a back exercise. So it's just some back pulls. So you're going to grasp the countertop or the island. If you're on a countertop and it's hard to hold on to, you might want to go to a spot where there's a drawer or something and you can open the drawer so you can actually grasp the countertop really well. And you're just going to lean back. And then you're going to slowly pull yourself towards the counter and then release back again. Pull yourself forward and release back. And this one, the closer your feet are to the countertop, the more difficult it's going to be. Next, we're going to do some tricep dips. So we're going to turn around, stand with our feet about hip width apart, place our hands firmly on the edge of the countertop behind us on either side of our hips, with our elbows bent, sticking out behind us. And then you just slowly lower down to the ground and then push yourself back up through your arms. Lower down and lift yourself back up. and just keep going like this with slow, steady repetitions. And for this one, if you want it a little bit more difficult, you can move your feet out further away from the countertop. So this one, the farther away your feet are from the countertop, the more difficult it's going to be. And the straighter your legs are, the more difficult it's going to be. So if you're feeling like you want a little bit more intensity, just push those feet a little bit farther out and do the tricep dips from there. And keep going with your slow, steady repetitions until your timer or your set amount is up. And the last one for our upper body is just some shoulder raises. So you're going to stand with your feet shoulder width apart, standing very straight with your arms out beside you, elbows bent, palms facing forward, and then just slowly raise your hands up to the ceiling and then lower them back down. Raise them up to the ceiling, straightening out those elbows, and then lower back down again. Now our shoulders are a very small muscle group, so it actually doesn't take much to work them at all. So even though we're not using weights, this is still a good workout for our shoulders, especially when recovering from health issues. So there you go. There's a very simple, very gentle workout that you can do from your kitchen that doesn't require any equipment. It's not complicated at all, and you can do it for as little or as long as you like. This could be a 1-minute workout or it could be a 20-minute workout. It's really up to you. And of course, going to depend on where you are in your own journey and what's safe and appropriate for you. Now, I also do a lot of stretching, and stretching has been a huge part of my NE-CFS recovery. And I always did a little bit of stretching after my workouts as well, because if I didn't, my body got very tight and very sore, and I had a lot of pain, and it made it very difficult for me to sleep. So stretching for me was invaluable and a huge part of my recovery as well. So I've done a few videos just on stretching as well. So if you're curious in checking out what I did for stretches, I'll put some links on the video screen above and you can take a look. And if you enjoyed this and you'd like to see a little bit more about some of the techniques and the things that I used to help me incorporate exercise and movement into my day, I'll put a link up on the screen here to another video I did, if you haven't already seen it, that explains a system that I used to incorporate movement throughout my day. Because eventually I came to learn and appreciate and realize that just exercising or doing movement once per day wasn't going to be enough. I had to find a way to bring in gentle movement throughout my whole day in a way that wasn't going to make me feel worse or set me back. That's it. I hope you found something in here useful, valuable, helpful. I'm wishing you all the best with whatever it is that you're facing. Just keep going, keep working. I believe that you will get there. And as always, if you enjoyed this, a nice way to say thanks is to click that like button, and I hope to see you in the next video.